Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. On behalf of the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, I welcome you all to the International Conference on Understanding International Migration. I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished moderators for this session, Dr. Pichamon Yeophantong, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, fellow scholars and participants who have joined us through Zoom and are watching us live on Facebook. We're glad to witness your presence today. This international forum aims to bring together rigorous and erudite scholars working on the migration issues from all around the world over a single platform. This conference is a full-day event with 11 different sessions, with 2 sessions running parallelly throughout in white and green room. The conference features 73 scholars from 25 different countries who will be delivering their presentations and sharing their understanding on international migration. The session is streaming live on YouTube, so please feel free to share it on your social media handle with hashtag ICUIM2021. Please do follow us on Twitter at ContactNice and subscribe our YouTube channel, Nice Nepal. This is the 5th session of the conference. To chair and moderate this session, it's a real pleasure to have Dr. Pichamon Yeophantong here with us. Dr. Pichamon Yeophantong is an Australian Research Council DECRA Fellow and Senior Lecturer in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, HASS. UNSW Canberra at the Australian Defence Force Academy, ADFA. She also leads the Responsible Business Lab and Environmental Justice and Human Rights Project and convenes the Asia Pacific Development and Security Research Group at HASS. A political scientist and China specialist by training, her research focuses on Chinese foreign policy and the political economy of sustainable development, including resource conflict and energy transitions in the Asia Pacific. In addition to her ARC-funded project on how to better regulate Chinese resource and infrastructure investment overseas, Pichamon is a chief investigator on 3 other projects that collectively seek to enhance the resilience of women leaders and environmental defenders, together with the adaptive capacity of social and environmental regulations in Southeast Asia. In 2018, Pichamon was awarded the CHASS Australia Future Leader Prize by the Council for the Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences and was named a human rights fighter and finalist for the 2020 Advance Awards. Without any further ado, I request you to take this session forward. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much, Akriti, for that very, very kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My apologies for joining you late. I had some technical difficulties very nearly threw my laptop off my balcony just now out of frustration. But it gives me great pleasure to be moderating this extremely important and timely session on the Rohingya crisis. And today we are joined by a range of esteemed and fascinating scholars. So to start us off, we have Ananya Dutta, who is former UN staff for the International Organization for Migration, and who will be speaking with us today on the Rohingya refugees, a historical context and current geopolitical realities. So can I just confirm whether Anindya is here with us right now?
Sorry,
okay.
There is some change in the schedule, which
okay.
I forgot to send you. First is Dr. Sampa Kundu.
Okay, no worries. All right, in that case, Dr. Sampa Kundu, who is an assistant professor at Amity University in India, who will be speaking with us today on refugee and migration issues from Myanmar, a complex scenario. What we will do is we'll go speaker by speaker, and I'll introduce each of you individually before you start. And then at the very end, we will allow for some Q&A, and participants will be able to submit their questions and their comments through the chat function. I will read them out to you as time permits to provide each of you a chance to respond. So let us start with you, Dr. Sampa Kundu.
Good afternoon to everyone. So thank you, Dr. Pichamon, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to speak on this issue, and thank you to Nice Nepal. So let me start my presentation first. Just give me a second. Yeah, I hope it's visible to all of you. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay. So today I will be talking about the refugee issue in Myanmar, which I believe is a complex scenario. And to start the presentation, I mean, we all know about the geography of Rakhine State and all, but just to introduce the topic, I thought it would be good if I can just show you the map with the geographic location of Rakhine State, where the problem of the Rohingya refugees emerge. So Rohingyas are roughly 1/3 of the total population in Rakhine State. Um, this is a fact that Rohingyas are the minority Muslims who live in a Buddhist majority country, and this fact is very interesting, and also it plays a very instrumental role in this complex scenario. Rohingyas are considered foreigners, quote unquote. They are considered as Bengalis in Myanmar. There are few laws. For example, in 1982, the citizenship law. Then in 2014, the Myanmar state of Myanmar conducted a census where the Rohingyas were not considered. And then they also came up with four laws. Together, we call it. They call it race and religious protection laws. So these four laws are actually going against the interest of the Rohingya people. Uh, Talk about the plight of the Rohingya refugees. Even though in this slide I started with the year 2012, but that was not the beginning. It started in the decade of 1970s. Then in 1990s also they had to face a lot of discrimination, a lot of violence happened. In June 2012, like when the world started talking about these Rohingya issues, that was June 2012 when sporadic clashes between the Rakhine Buddhist and Rohingya Muslims triggered internal displacement of the Rohingya refugees, Rohingya Muslims. Then January 2014, again the Rakhine state had witnessed conflict. 2015, the boat people, the quote unquote famous or infamous, we would say, the boat people crisis started with irregular migration of the Rohingyas from Rakhine state to various neighboring countries, including most of the countries were from Southeast Asia. In 2015, for example, Thailand,
Dr. Kundu, I'm afraid we've lost you temporarily. I think it's a connection issue.
The international media started talking about this Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, which is ARSA. Uh, I'm not going to talk about the beginning of ARSA. If there is any question regarding that, then probably I will talk about it later. But in 2016, ARSA launched attacks against the security forces in Myanmar, and that began the retaliation by the Myanmar state, the state of Myanmar, with lot of strength, with a lot of vigor. Then August 2017. This was very important because in 2017, the international community and also the Myanmar state had already started working on various committees and actions to tackle and manage the issue. However, in the midst of all those actions, ARSA launched another attack, and it actually escalated the tension, and also the security forces, the way they reacted to it, it was again very interesting, and more than interesting, it was not supported by the international community. There were reports of gross human rights violation. Then September 2016, now I come to the responses, how the international community responded, how the Myanmar state responded to all these problems. So September 2016, we had the advisory commission on the Rakhine state, and it was led by Kofi Annan. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, she made a committee to implement the recommendations given by the advisory committee. Then we also had one fact-finding, independent international fact-finding mission on Myanmar. Um, here I have given a quote. You can read the quote. This quotation I actually got from the Human Rights Council, and how they defined the entire crisis situation in the Rakhine state. United Nations Security Council deliberations on the situation in Myanmar also happened in the same year, 2017. And here they mentioned that they actually expressed grave concern over reports of human rights violations and abuses in the country. They expressed their grave concern over systematic use of force and intimidation, killing of men, women, and children, sexual violence, including the destruction and burning of homes and property. So this was actually in a brief word. It was in a brief words. It was a synopsis. It was actually the summary of whatever was happening in Rakhine State. They also came up with a joint response plan in 2019. This was a welcome step, um, and JRP also requested for funding to manage the crisis, to tackle the crisis within the state. But by then, a lot of developments were happening within the state. Even what was not anymore welcome by the Myanmar government, uh, uh, even though the National League for Democracy was in power by then. But things were not actually going in a right direction, or the way international community expected it should go, or the way we thought that Suki will handle all these problems. That was not happening, and it was becoming very evident day by day. 2020 was I mean, the whole world was, experiencing this COVID-19. But even in that year also, the Rohingya refugees, the plight of the Rohingya refugees were nowhere to stop. It continued. And here I have given a little bit quotation from the letter which was written by the Secretary General of the United Nations. It was addressed to the President of the UNSC. And here she mentioned that Myanmar state actually has the responsibility under the prohibition against genocide. In between, I actually, this slide should have come earlier, but anyway, so this also happened, the ICJ ruling. Myanmar faced this allegation. It came from the state of Gambia, but Myanmar, straight down the line, they mentioned that it is not under the, they actually cited lack of jurisdiction on part of ICJ. Later, Suchi actually went there, and she represented the interest of her country. And she also mentioned that the Myanmar military doesn't have any kind of involvement in the violation of the human rights, or they do not have any kind of involvement in any kind of genocide. So that actually, an episode which basically uh, tarnished her image at the international level, because no one was expecting this kind of development or this kind of statement from her. But that happened. Now quickly I come to the problems. What are the problems? Now we have seen what are the facts. Now what are the problems? To my mind, the first problem is the Myanmar state, how they managed the conflict. It was not at all efficient, because the government, whether it was a military government or whether it was the NLD government, they did not try to de-escalate the situation in Rakhine state. uh, uh, the armed forces were not obliged to pay attention to the crisis faced by the Rohingya refugees, and Suchi did not distance herself from the military, creating all these rakas in the Rakhine state. So all these things were pointing out towards non-management or not efficient management of the conflict. So I think that is number one problem, as far as my readings are concerned. The second problem is how regional neighbors, how they are looking at the problem, or how they are trying to address the issue. We have ASEAN, and ASEAN has always, come up with these statements. They have condemned, they have criticized, but to what extent ASEAN is able to convince Myanmar to take a step forward to manage the crisis is a question. Then China is always protecting Myanmar. I mean, even yesterday we had this news that China has again, I think day before yesterday, it came in the news that China again uh, um, mentioned something at the United Nations Security Council, and they did not let UNSC to come up with a strong message against the very recent coup that happened in the country. So the way China has been protecting Myanmar from decades, it's a signal that the big neighbor in the region is actually protecting the generals in the country, and that has actually given them enough influential power within the country. And the third thing, I also need to talk about how India reacts. India normally observes problems, like if we have to look at the statements given by the Ministry of External Affairs, they observe the problem, we notice the problem. However, India always believes in maintaining a distance from this problem, as far as because of the geopolitical reasons, because of the geostrategic reasons, because of India's interest in Myanmar. So all these things actually signal that all the neighbors, regional neighbors, they follow either constructive engagement, or we can say it's a principled engagement when it comes to the state-to-state relationship. And this has actually led us towards silenced diplomacy or silenced human rights diplomacy. We are not talking about human rights, rather we are only talking about state-to-state relationship. The third problem is, yes, it is true that United Nations has on several occasions they have mentioned that it is a genocide. However, this acknowledgement is not happening within the country. I mean, if we have to look inside Myanmar, neither the generals nor the Buddhist majority nor any other political party nor the common people, they are not they are not worried about this issue. So the acknowledgement is still there. Lack of acknowledgement is still there. Here I have mentioned few points about Bangladesh. However, I'm not really very sure if I have time. Um, just few points what Bangladesh needs to do, because Bangladesh has become one of the largest refugee camps for the Rohingya refugees. So there are a few points that we need to take into consideration while talking about Bangladesh, stakes of Bangladesh in the Rohingya refugee issue. Just one point here I would like to focus, and it's about the girls and women in the refugee camps, because 52% of the Rohingya refugees in the camps in Bangladesh are women and girls. So we need to think about their problems, and we also need to see how their rehabilitation, how their resettlement can happen. So here I come to the conclusion. The first conclusion is yes, of course, we cannot support the attacks were launched by ARSA. And however, the way the retaliation happened, it actually violated human rights of not only the ARSA members, but also the common Rohingya Muslim people. So that cannot be forgotten. The second thing is the neighborhood silence diplomacy has actually, helped Myanmar to continue with the problem. The third thing is Bangladesh has been appreciated for its works. However, we need to see what can be done in the future as far as Bangladesh and this Rohingya refugee crisis is concerned. And finally, Suu Kyi, she still, has this recognition within Myanmar. I mean, the common people of Myanmar, they are really happy with her taking over the administration. Now, of course, the scenario has again changed. But here I have talked about a survey that was conducted in 2020. And according to that survey, 70% the majority people in Myanmar, they are against the Rohingyas, and 70% of the people still have trust on Suu Kyi. So I think as the icon of democracy, as an icon of peace, she, could have handled, she could have managed the crisis in a more, comprehensive way, in a more wiser way. Uh, uh, However, that did not happen. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and if there is any question or any suggestion, that would be welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Kundu. And it was exactly 12 minutes, so well done. And within that 12 minutes, you've really provided us with such a comprehensive overview of the Rohingya crisis. But also one of the points that you've touched upon, aside from the coup, but the gender impacts and implications of the crisis really flows into the topic of our next speaker, Anuttama Banerji, who is a research associate at the Council for Strategic and Defense Research in India, and he will be speaking to us today about the genesis of the Rohingya crisis and its impacts on adolescent women. So over to you, Anuttama.
Ma'am, are you able to hear me? Is it audible?
Yes, we can. If you can speak a bit louder, that would be good. I think it's a bit soft.
I think that will make it. Just a moment. Ma'am, is it audible now?
It is. I think we're good now.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Nice Nepal, for this wonderful opportunity again. As far as the topic is concerned, ma'am has already introduced it to all of you. I have decided to briefly trace the genesis of the Rohingya crisis and look at the impact of the crisis on women, especially adolescent women. And I'm looking at the specific age groups here as part of the assessment, that is young girls between the age groups of 10 and 14 and 15 and 19 years of age as part of a study. Before I proceed further, I would like to discuss the genesis of the crisis. As Ms. Kundu has already pointed out, 50% of the refugees are women in the camps. That is, every second person is a woman. So it means how important it is to look at the conflict and try to understand where women are placed within that. So just to give a brief assessment of the crisis, the Rohingya crisis, as already pointed out, originated in Myanmar, where when Rohingyas began facing discrimination, or I should say systematic discrimination at the hands of the military junta through restrictions on marriage, family planning, education, employment, freedom of religion and movement through laws that were enforced in 1982. Interestingly, the 1982 citizenship law recognized 135 ethnicities within Myanmar, but systematically excluded the Rohingya. They were expected to follow a strict code of conduct in matters of marriage and had to seek prior approval before marrying someone, things that definitely had an impact on the lives of women. It is believed that the Rakhine state is akin to an open-air prison today for the Rohingyas, as per Amnesty International's latest report. The violence and genocide against the Rohingyas has increased as waves of violence between dominant Theravada Buddhists and Rohingya Muslims has seen a rise since 2012. And the International Crime State Initiative has noted that the Rohingyas are facing the final stages of a genocide, that is a systematic weakening of the Rohingyas since 2015. It is difficult to assess the immediate cause of the conflict or the ensuing violence, but sources have claimed that attacks on an international NGO and its offices in Sitwe in 2015 triggered the present crisis. Other reports have suggested that the attacks on security forces by the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, as pointed out before, the ARSA in the Rakhine province, triggered the genocide against the Rohingyas in Myanmar. The world, however, waited well until 2017 to finally take note of the crisis that left millions affected. The Rohingyas, as already pointed out, are an ethnic minority group who have faced discrimination since the 70s. And at the present moment, the UNHCR, or the United High Commission for Refugees, states that over 742,000 refugees, both men and women, have fled to neighboring Bangladesh from Myanmar since 25th August 2017, when the latest exodus began, and now live in crowded pop-up communities across refugee settlements in Kutupalong and Nayapara in Bangladesh. We already know that they are also being shifted to this new island of Bhashanchar, and we are aware of the situation there. So it's environmentally hazardous, and there are other issues as well. However, my focus is going to be on the gender issue, but I just wanted to point that out as well. The Kutupalong refugee camp in Bangladesh is currently among the largest refugee camps in the world, hosting more than 600,000 people living in an area of just 13 square kilometers. And as is all evident, people are jostling for space. Rohingyas have also been living as refugees in Thailand, Malaysia, my own country, India, and of course, Indonesia. While the socio-economic impact of the crisis is well known, limited information is available about the impact of the crisis on women, because women are unfortunately not present as part of the discourse. They have not been given sufficient space, whether academically or otherwise. UN Women notes that women have been the worst sufferers throughout the crisis. They have faced sexual violence, rape, domestic violence, systematic abuse right from the beginning of the crisis, and have now been pushed to a corner due to the coronavirus pandemic. At the same time, studies have shown that women require access to maternal health care facilities, with 19,500 pregnant women being currently housed in the camps. Now, this fact is very interesting also because the womb has traditionally been the site of conflict. So, how we look at it how we look at it within the larger framework here, when women are suffering, is something that we need to look at. How, were there forced pregnancies? What was the situation like? There's very little information on that. While I've tried to look at it closely, I've found that there is limited information, essentially because women are not able to speak up about it. Therefore, I've decided to focus on the plight of women, especially these adolescent women. Traditionally, the conflict lens through which this conflict, the traditional lens through which this conflict has been studied, relates to what we have quote unquote known as protracted social conflicts. To give a brief overview of what protracted social conflicts are, given by this concept has been given by Edward Azar, and it refers to prolonged and often violent struggle by communal groups for basic needs like security, recognition, and acceptance, which are keywords here, fair access to political institutions, and economic participation, which are the preconditions and sources of such a prolonged and violent struggle. Azar has defined it in four clusters of variables, which are, according to him, essential. These include the communal content of a society, human needs, the role of the state, which is also incredibly important here, and of course, international linkages, which kind of sums up how the crisis has panned out till now. Um, in my opinion, women, especially adolescent women, are absent from the discourse, as pointed out. And through desk research and qualitative research, through data that was available to me, I've tried to understand this conflict. I'm currently in the process of trying to conduct interviews with women in camps here in Delhi to further my research. There are camps in Madanpur, Khadar, and other areas to give it to understand the impact of the crisis within the Indian context, because there are refugees living here, with 40,000 refugees currently living in camps across India. But whatever I've found out so far has been that the gender lens is unfortunately quite absent. A UN report suggests that adolescent women face several issues in the camps, and some of these issues include limited access to education, freedom of movement, access to clean water, hygiene facilities, and of course, systematic use of violence. It is intriguing to note here that adolescents face the crisis in ways which are unique and different. There is limited understanding. They perceive there is a sense of normalization, that this is how it should be. There's limited understanding of what is right and wrong. And that is where I think these women are in a unique position. They are young women who know little about their rights. And since lack of education is there, there is lack of access to what we would call a better understanding of the existing social order. And that makes the entire conflict even more complicated. For example, there is limited awareness about what we would quote unquote call sexual and reproductive health rights, and girls often face restrictions again. That is, they are denied the right to speak about these issues. It's very difficult even for researchers to go ahead and ask the right questions to get information. And there are language barriers also, which exist, of course. I often suggest that I'm essentially focusing on the word speak here for a reason, because women are in denial that they are facing a difficult situation and have come to accept the existing situation as natural. That is, it is normalized as part of their day-to-day existence, as a part of their regular life. As per a study conducted by Monash University, girls who reported among the girls who reported physical violence and mistreatment, the majority of incidents occurred within the household. Now, that is again a very important aspect to be noted. Essentially, close to 1 in 4 adolescent girls aged 10 to 14, that is from the study I'm quoting here, 24%, and close to 1, that is 24% of the girls, and close to 1 in 10 adolescent girls reported being hit or beaten in the past 1 month, with 87% of those cases occurring within the home. For younger adolescent girls, the perpetrators were overwhelmingly parents, which is 74%. So it's a very big number. In the case of older adolescent girls, the perpetrator was more likely to be either a current or an ex-husband. Additionally, though women and younger girls, adolescent girls have expressed a desire to learn about sexual and reproductive health rights, they were sometimes prevented from asking questions about it. It has been suggested, though, that female family members and NGOs could act as preferred sources of information, but that divide continues to exist with language barriers, with the inability to speak up. It is easy for me to dwell on the facts and figures and numbers here, but I'm not here to do that. And since women are at the heart of the conflict, I believe that simply looking at this crisis from a feminist lens is not enough. Therefore, I believe that looking at the crisis from a more prudent security lens would be better, since women face, quote unquote, what is known as an imminent threat. Moreover, since women are being denied the basic right to voice their opinions, borrowing from the Copenhagen School of International Relations, I suggest that security in this context should be seen as a speech act at the very basic level. While I admit there are limitations to this theory as well, I feel it is a great starting point at this juncture, so that the conflict, which has traditionally been seen through a feminist lens, now comes, and as a social conflict, as I told you, as I spoke about it through Edward Azar's analysis, um, as a protracted social conflict, it is time we look at it through a more through the lens of securitization. It is in this way that the conflict will get ample recognition across circles and also within the academic world. While aid agencies are leading from the front in managing the crisis and have suggested several measures to assist women, including through recruitment of women staff who are gender sensitive and can strike conversations with women, I do think that, and there are also plans here to include Majis and other women leaders from the community itself, uh, and give access to adolescent women to communal spaces such as schools. I feel until and unless the women are not part, women are continue to be part of the periphery and not the core, there will be limited movement on that front. So it's very important to make this issue a part of the mainstream discourse and not keep it to the periphery. And hence, securitization of this issue will allow women the ability to deliberate and discuss issues that bother them at length. There is greater need for sensitivity towards it, and of course, engagement and having a conversation at the basic level will be the right beginning, as we've done it today. Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Anuttama, for that very thought-provoking presentation. And certainly women have been absent from the overarching discourse of the Rohingya crisis. And we certainly we'd like to hear more and learn more about your research, but also to hear more of the plight that women face in this particular crisis. Which really, again, segues very nicely into the topic of our next speaker, which is exploring the human rights of the Rohingyas. And here we have Nancy Puri, who is a research scholar at Amity University in India. Again, I think both previous speakers have really highlighted the human rights implications of the current crisis. And at the same time, they've highlighted the inadequacies of current responses to the crisis, but also have pointed out the need for us to perhaps deconstruct this, the term human rights itself. So over to you, Nancy, when you're ready, 12 minutes.
So yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. We do not see you, but we can hear you very clearly.
Okay, ma'am, can you permit me to just share my screen? May I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You should have rights, I imagine, to share the screen. Great,
okay.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Chair. Firstly, I would like to thank NICE Nepal for giving me a great opportunity to present my paper. So the topic of my paper is exploring human rights of Rohingyas. So my name is Nancy Puri. I'm a research scholar from Amity Institute of International Studies, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, India. So now I'm moving on to the first slide. Okay, the first.
Sorry, Nancy. Would you mind putting your slides in PowerPoint mode? If you go to the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see a little kind of a little box with the, because it's not, if you can
near
make
to
it
minus. Can you see minus, plus and minus 90%?
Okay, just give me a second. Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
no, just
Okay,
just
wait.
the PowerPoint. Left, before minus there is one icon. Left, little left. No, please move left. Yes.
This one?
the
No,
one
next.
Go
This
right?
one?
Right.
Slides. This one?
Right.
This one, reading
One
view.
more right.
Go after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, slideshow. Okay. Now is it visible?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. So yes, now I am starting with the introduction one. So Rohingya belongs to Rakhine state of Myanmar, which is formerly known as Arakan state. Rohingyas are the ethnic Muslim minority community of Myanmar. In Myanmar, Rohingya speak Rohingya, that is distinct dialect from other communities living in Myanmar. Rohingya practice Sufi-inflected variation of Sunni Islam. According to World Bank, it is estimated that Myanmar is with a poverty rate of 78% compared to the 37.5% national average. There are an estimated 3.5 million Rohingya dispersed worldwide. The government of Myanmar is a predominantly a Buddhist country, had rejected Rohingyas people as they claim Rohingyas are the illegal immigrants from Bangladesh and has denied them citizenship and leaving them statelessness. Myanmar government discriminated against Rohingya people and has left them in a disgraceful condition. They do not have access to schools, healthcare, and jobs, etc. It is estimated that there are about 1.1 million Rohingya in the Southeast Asian country. Myanmar government does not consider Rohingya as part of their country. So I could say that since ongoing violence in Myanmar, many Rohingyas fled to neighboring countries by land or boats. Since late 1970s, due to the persecution, it is estimated that nearby about 1 million Rohingya fled to Myanmar. Since 2012, the UN data estimates that 168,000 Rohingyas have fled Myanmar. According to International Organization for Migration, after the break of violence, it is estimated that 87,000 Rohingya had fled to Bangladesh from October 2016 to July 2017. It is claimed that between 2012 and 2015, more than 112,000 Rohingya had faced dangerous journey. UNHCR said more than 1,000 Rohingyas may have been killed in Myanmar. Violence in Rakhine State not only affects the democratization process in Myanmar but also poses threat to the stability of the region. So this paper aims to explore the human rights discrimination faced by Rohingya in Myanmar. Now I'm moving on to the next slide. Yes, the purpose and the aim of the paper. The paper explores condition of human rights of Muslim ethnic groups from Myanmar, the Rohingyas. It analyzes the discrimination faced by Rohingya in Myanmar. The Rohingya people are considered as stateless entities as the Myanmar government does not recognize them as an ethnic people, even though they have been living in Rakhine province in Western Myanmar for generations. Thus, they lack protection from Myanmar government. The paper explores living condition of Rohingyas and about their human rights perspective. The methodology of the paper to explore the human rights of Rohingya refugees in Myanmar, a qualitative research is planned. As qualitative research will in journal accentuates words instead of a quantification in the collection of the data. The paper is based on review of literature. The information was systematically assembled and investigated all through the research paper. So now in this slide, I'm discussing here about the human rights violation against Rohingyas in Myanmar. The first one is about the no citizenship rights. Since 1982, citizenship law, Rohingyas were denied the citizenship rights in Myanmar. Citizens who received the pink cards are the official recognized national races and domiciled in Burma before British arrived. The citizens who received green cards are the associate citizens Blue cards are those citizens who furnish evidence of entry and residence in Myanmar before the independence and can speak one of the Myanmar languages. In 1995, Burmese authority issued temporary registration card, also called as the white cards. That means Rohingyas are deliberated with the limited community rights. Myanmar government defines the Union Citizenship Act of 1948 as those national races that lived permanently in the country before the First Anglo-Burmese War, that is, before 1824. This ethnicization of public status is generally reserved for approved and has not been contested by multi-ethnic group members. The majority Burman ethnic group has the political hegemony in the country. State has not counted the Rohingyas and left out the community from equitable treatment by the state. Due to the deliberate state policy, for many years Rohingyas were denationalized. In the 1950 National Registration Card, that is the NRC, were widely used as the de facto proof of citizenship or nationality. But in the 1970s, North Arakan Muslims were not allotted NRCs and many NRCs were seized by the government. In February 2015, TRC were cancelled. In June 2015, new green cards were distributed to those who were ready to security for citizenship under situations that denied them self-identification as Rohingyas. This obviously exemplifies the state's arbitrary nature with the Rohingyas. I'm moving on to the next slide. The next slide, which is discussing about the denial of the right to freedom of movement for Rohingyas in Myanmar. Rohingyas are not allowed to move freely in the country. Rohingyas requires a photograph license to move freely in the country. Rohingyas has to take permission from Burmese authorities to travel between township and outside the Rakhine state. Since the criminal violation of 2012, there was a restrictions of movement. Rohingyas are not allowed to leave the camps in Rakhine state without permission. In 2012, curfew was imposed in Rakhine State due to the restrictions on human rights and harassment by law enforcement against Rohingyas. As a result of such barriers, an estimated 66,000 Rohingyas have crossed the border and escaped to Bangladesh either by boats or by attempting to skim across by holding into plastic compartment or barrel. Rohingyas faced extreme violence during internal or cross-border migration to different countries by losing of their family members, killed, beaten, raped, or taken away to an unknown location. Their homes were burned or looted. The OHCHR office, that is Office of the High Commissioner team, interviewed more than 220 victims. Through the interviews, a basic statistical analysis came out where 65% reported killing, 64% reported beating, 43% reported rape, 31% reported sexual violence, 64% reported burning or other destructions of property. Rohingyas are not allowed to travel freely in the state and they were recently required to sign a commitment not to have more than 2 kids. However, the law was not strictly implemented. They are also subject to forced labor. So the next slide, which is discussing about the lack of educational rights to Rohingyas. A 2000 Rohingyas, Rohingyas are suffering due to the ongoing genocide striking in Myanmar. Myanmar's authorities are wiping out Rohingyas from Myanmar. There is a need of educated Rohingya who can act as a leader of the community, but educational rights remain severely restricted for Rohingyas. According to Tun Khin, president of BRO Burmese Rohingya Organization UK, said schooling is a vital to allowing people to lift themselves and their families out of poverty and to improve their lives. The human rights, however, is denied to Rohingya children. This situation must not be allowed to continue. Muslim Rohingyas are not allowed to attend government schools within Buddhist Rakhine State. Rohingyas are provided with separate education services where the quality of teaching is extremely poor. Teachers refuse to teach Rohingya Muslims and even refuse to go Rohingyas village to teach Rohingya children. It is estimated that 73% of Rohingya living in Rakhine State are uneducated. Since 2017, Myanmar authorities have been targeting teachers and other educated Rohingyas, further depleting the collective capacity for education. If I discuss here about in the mid 2012 in Sitwe University in Myanmar, authorities banned hundreds of Rohingyas to return back to university due to the racial segregation imposed on the darker skinned Rohingyas. The government owned university in Rakhine State that is considered as a de facto open air prison for hundreds of ethnic minority groups. Teachers who belong to Buddhist community refused to work in Muslim dominated areas. Myanmar government had imposed restrictions against Rohingyas movement across the state that has made it difficult for children to attend middle and high schools. Government had imposed restrictions to achieve degrees in certain subjects like engineering and medicine, etc. Rohingyas who are living in remote areas found it difficult to get travel permits to attend the university. So, if I conclude the paper, so in August 2017, Rohingyas aggressors group (ARSA) propelled an assault on the Burmese border guard forces bases. The Burmese armed force reacted with a ruthless military action. Because of the viciousness, more than 6 lakhs 50,000 Rohingyas have fled Myanmar. Rohingya workers Human rights organizations, pioneers, and nations have censored the rising brutality that has been depicted by various spectators as ethnic cleansing, violations against humankind, what is more, annihilation. So, approx, if I say 6 lakhs
Nancy, if you hear us, we've
yes,
lost. Okay, you're back now.
thank you, ma'am. Within these circumstances, health workers and researchers should keep advocating for the Rohingya, drawing attention to their situation and guaranteeing their humanitarian help. For example, food, nutrition, clean water, education, and social insurance is given, steady with fundamental rights, fundamental principles of human rights. So, all this for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you again for keeping to the time, Nancy, and providing with us with yet another very comprehensive and thought-provoking presentation. I'm sure after these three presentations, there will be plenty of questions. I certainly have a few for all three presenters. On again such a timely issue, especially with the coup that's happened in Myanmar. Um, so on that note, moving on for now, and again, if I can remind everyone to please prepare your questions, your comments, and to put them through the chat box so that we might raise them with the speakers or discuss them in greater detail shortly once all presenters have had a chance to present. Let's move on now to Constantin Plamadeala. Please excuse me if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. Constantine, are you here with us?
Yes, hello to everyone. Yeah, I mean, quite well you pronounced my surname. Actually, for foreigners, the surname is very complicated. Anyway, I don't know what's the problem. I mean, I had another topic, is not related to the Rohingya, but I was put in this section. So anyway, now I have, because I have also a presentation,
Sure.
and I'd like to.
So I understand your presentation is on misperception and demobilization
Yeah,
in Moldova.
yes.
Yep.
So this actually is my presentation, just for yes. So the first slide. Uh, can you see my presentation?
Certainly can. Excellent.
Okay, perfect.
So you have 12 minutes. I will let you know through the chat box.
Yeah, okay, okay. So thank you so much. So my topic actually is totally different besides these great topics which were presented now. Actually, it's related to migration and terrorism, misperception, and the mobilization of potential terrorist groups. I'm a PhD student within the University of Debrecen in Hungary, and I will talk about my foreign professional experience. Originally, I'm coming from Moldova. I used to work as a border guard within the border police of Moldova. So, speaking about uh, illegal migration, traffic of human beings, and terrorism, I would like to say that the relationship between terrorism and various forms of migration is complex one. And in one sense, it falls under the even broader theme of globalization. The income generated by crimes of human trafficking may be used by terrorist groups to finance their operations. The human trafficking is one of the most serious violations of human rights and one of the most profitable activities of organized crimes. It attracts a broad range of criminal groups from small uh, local groups to international networks of criminals. Different conflicts and wars can enable the human trafficking. Actually, these are the main sources of human trafficking. And as you can see, these are elements of this network between illegal migration, traffic of human beings, and terrorists. The act, what is done, the means, how it's done, and the purpose for why it is done. So, of course, we, as I told you, the regions where are conflicts and wars are the sources of the human trafficking. And also, besides this, there are also for sure regions who have or countries who have poor authority or lack thereof. As you can see, the present map of ongoing conflicts from different reasons. There are could be religious war ethnical conflicts, religious conflicts, as in Rohingya. Uh, I mean, civil wars like in Syria or Afghanistan, and so on. As you can see, due to these problems, many people from Southeast Asia, from Middle East, are trying to pass illegally the border to European Union. And these are some statistical data provided by European Borders and Coast Guard Agency from 2018-2019. And as you can see on this map are several routes: Eastern Mediterranean, Western Balkans, Central Mediterranean, and Western. Well, actually, Western Mediterranean Sea is mostly dedicated, it's a route dedicated to those who are coming from Africa. Okay, so here, as you can see, there is illegal migration or potential terrorist or a potential criminal. Just as an example, based on my professional experience, um, suppose we have a group of migrants coming from Middle East, and as you can see here, most of them are going to Turkey. They are using the most important hub in Turkey, which is uh, Istanbul airport. Then they are coming to my country also by air to Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. And of course, they're using fake passport. It doesn't matter. Most of them, they can use British passport, fake British passports, uh, maybe Slovak, Hungarian. They try to uh, pass the border through the Chisinau airport, and they can come as a tourist, like officially, but unofficially they have just one purpose: to pass to European Union, because actually my country, even though it's not a part of European Union, but is a transit country for illegal migrants and potential terrorists. As you can see here, we have the tertiary person who is responsible to bring this, let's say, illegal migrant to the western border of Moldova, and then illegally during the night passes. Or other version is to mm, uh, go to fly to, for example, Moscow, and then to European Union. Even from Istanbul, for example, there is direct flight to Moscow. No, and based on several information, we can detect that using several like strange routes, this person could be illegal migrant. Uh, so as you can see here, the also a map of illegal migration to European Union. As you can see, uh, red pointed red points. These are actually airports, mostly used by illegal migrants who are intent to go to European Union. Um, so, for example, those who are coming through from Sri Lanka, India, Tajikistan, Afghanistan are using as a transit point Moscow Domodedovo, and then come to Chisinau, then illegally also to I don't know, using a route to Kiev, for example, or to Bucharest. They are going to European Union, or simply they are passing the border, as I told you before, supported by a local who is paid with huge money, at least 1,000 euro, or 2,000 euro, just depends on the price. Also, of course, as through Istanbul, we have some from some African countries, Arab countries, maybe also could be some regions of Turkey. Also through Kiev is the same thing, like Iran, Iraq, Turkey, India, Pakistan. Those who are would like to would like to go to the European Union illegally. There are several many cases when also there are asylum seekers, and as you can see here, we the risky zone of the border between Moldova and Romania, and also this zone is actually used by illegal migrants. So here we have the threat identification, specific time analysis. So threat is based on several points, as you can see. Based on read there, we have also intelligence cycle. So here is the terrorism influence diagram, how the terrorist actions are analyzed, or potential terrorist action. So when a group of persons is coming, as I told you, or a group of illegal migrants, or just a simple person, we use the risk analysis. So, I mean, the risk analysis and the collection of information is very important for us. As you can see, we base. I mean, bodyguards are also are trying to make a profile of potential terrorists. Like, there are like several elements. As you can see, also the dressing, the behavior, the document, the country of origin. I mean, this points could be the risk. Also, the bird sometimes plays an important role. Also, besides this, we have fake passports and visas. So these are the main instruments of potential terrorists and illegal migrants. Here, as you can see, the technical fake documents. So every document, even ID or a visa or a passport has has a specific I mean protection signs. We have Prado system for detecting the fake document, and yeah, and what else? As here you can see some examples. Iranian citizen with French passport searched by Interpol. ISIS fighter from Tajikistan using Ukrainian fake passport. So here also some cases. Illegal migrant network discovered the state border, and the migration network against this the Western Gate of Moldova, the way to European Union. Sorry for taking too much time. Uh, Thank you so much. If you have comments, some critics, maybe questions, I would be happy to answer and to react. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much, Constantin. I can see that you have a lot of very interesting information, and certainly the issue of illegal migration is one that's only increased in severity, I think, over given the COVID-19 pandemic, in the sense that we don't know how these networks are evolving, and what the future of illegal migration is going to look like as well. Following on that note, and also looking at the EU more broadly, we have our next speaker, Dr. Swasti Rao, who is Assistant Professor in the Department of Strategic and Security Studies at Aligarh Muslim University in India, who will be looking at or providing a critical analysis of Dublin regulations in post-pandemic Europe, the refugee crisis, and evolving EU institutions. So again, Constantine and Dr. Rao will be looking at the EU, I understand, more generally, but certainly with implications and insights that are potentially applicable to the Rohingya crisis. So over to you, Dr. Rao, if you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so happy to see Constantin, presenting on EU, because I was actually feeling very left out. Everybody was talking about the recent crisis in Myanmar and the related Rohingya Muslim problem. However, without taking much time, let me start presenting on my, today's presentation. So, just by way of a brief introduction, I want to convey, that I got interested in this particular area because I teach a course on contemporary security issues in Europe, as a part of my monsoon semester, here at the university. And here, I got more and more interested in how the migrant crisis is perceived in India. Okay, and I realized that most of my students would have a problem in understanding why is it leading to that kind of Islamophobia or xenophobia or rise of right-wing populism. And while doing that, I kind of realized that the real problem somewhere hinges on the way the Dublin regulation system is there, to sort of share the responsibility of the migrant crisis. With this brief introduction, please allow me to share my screen. And I'll try to be as brief as possible. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So, well, this is what I intend to work on, for today. So, in 2020, while the world was grappling with COVID and etc., these pictures were coming from Europe, and these pictures, especially from the base camp at Moria, which is a Greek island, where the migrants are coming and living. These pictures got the attention world over. And why so? Because this is an area where we saw some sort of asylum seekers. They were hospitalized because gunshots were fired, etc. And then we got to understand that at the Moria camp, it was which could only have about 3,000 people, was containing more than 18,000, right? And then there is a place in Greece which is a major arrival point for migrants, etc. We all know about the migrant crisis. The migrant crisis has been there since 2015. I'm not going to get into the details of how the migrant crisis started, but I'm going to come to the main issue of what I want to present on. Similarly, in September again, 2020, we saw this this very unfortunate incident at Moria again, where that entire refugee camp kind of burnt down and displaced. Thousands of people got displaced, and suddenly that attention again shifted to what the hell is Europe going to do about this unmanageable refugee crisis. So just as a brief, I would say background, we all know that, migrants have been coming to Europe, and that unprecedented high was reached in 2015. And we can see these major three arrows, about the route from which they enter Europe. So we can see the Western Mediterranean route, the Central and the Eastern. Going further, this is the scale of the impact which is there in Europe, all right? And I think I would rather take questions on it because this is not really forming the major part of my presentation today. We all know where the refugees are coming from. So they're coming from Middle Eastern countries as well as Pakistan, etc. However, again, like I'm saying that these numbers don't really mean much until I kind of start to analyze what I want to present on today. Now, this is from where probably I would really be interested in starting the paper, which is that the and the different countries among the European Union, they have had a divided response to this migration. Okay, so and why? Because Italy and Greece and Malta and Spain, those countries are having to they are the front line of the migrant routes. So what happens is that they have repeatedly protested against the disproportionate responsibility. Okay, and the scale of migration phenomena has become a heavy burden. Okay, and in 2015, particularly after the peak of the crisis, it prompted the European Commission to adopt temporary relocation schemes. But these temporary relocation schemes were, rejected by Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, etc. So, from 2015 to about 2020 and now 2021, there has been a very, I would say, a very deep, detailed discussion on what Europe is going to be doing about the migrant crisis. And one thing that they've done is that they have tried to forego the Dublin regulation and come up with a comprehensive new policy that can that can share the burden of the migrant crisis in a better way. So like I said, the major bulk of my paper is going to be doing about what happened, what is the Dublin regulation, and what how the Dublin regulation has been adapting. Okay, so if you look at the EU response to migration, there are some policies that the European Union has. There is an immigration policy, they have an asylum policy, they have a border management policy. They have responded pretty well to the crisis by tripling the budget for Frontex for the different joint operations. As I've mentioned, there's been an EU action plan against migrant smuggling. There's been EU naval operations. So, as you can see that lives have also been rescued, etc. There've been assistance and relocation efforts. They've been cooperating with third countries like Turkey. There've been meetings on the Western Balkans, etc. But none of the above has proved to be sustainable without the following, which is that they need to reform the Dublin regulation. And when I say the Dublin regulation has already been reformed about 3 times, and we will see what exactly has been happening now. So this is Angela Merkel. And, in 2015, at the peak of the crisis, she went there and the kind of, opposition that, the refugees and the policies were having from certain countries like Poland and Hungary, etc. She said that Dublin regulation doesn't work and we need a common response for Europe as a whole. So from 2015, how far has Europe reached, that way? That is what I'm interested in, saying. In basically seeing today. So after 5 years, still we have a divided Europe. And because of the pandemic and the Brexit, the situation looks much more bleak than we expected. So let's go quickly. What is the Dublin regulation? I won't get into too many details. It is basically a kind of a European Union law that determines which EU member state is responsible for the examination of an application. And it has, if you look at the third point, it is the cornerstone of the Dublin system, which consists of the regulation and the Eurodac regulation. Eurodac, it's a kind of a fingerprinting, technology. So the Dublin rules, they apply to non-EU states also that they have signed up with the Schengen agreement, etc. So if you look here, you can actually see where, what works. You can see Denmark is an exception. I would like to take questions on it later. But basically, this is what we have, when we say the Dublin regulation. About the Eurodac, what exactly is it? I said that it is a European Union fingerprint database, and the European Commission, the fingerprints are sent to the European Commission, and it is the it is the biggest fingerprint identification system in the world. It has been there since January 2003. Incidentally, January 2003 was also the second regulation of the Dublin, the second revision of the Dublin regulation. Okay, and right now all EU member states currently participate in it. The point is, like I said, that it is the main purpose of this is to actually figure out as to which particular country is the applicant going to, based so that there is no revision, etc. So there's no duplication. Okay. Now, this is just a little thing that there's a lot of criticism of the Eurodac. So the system does not really store any biographic data. It is more about 10 rolled fingerprints. Now, the thing is that there is something definitely wrong with the Dublin regulation because it does not seem to cater to the migrant crisis problem. Why? Because it does not seek to fairly distribute responsibility for refugees. Okay, it wants to avoid asylum shopping in the sense that the refugees don't have the window to try and choose which country they want to go to, but they have to go to the first country they arrive at. And for this, Dublin establishes three principles: that they have only one opportunity, and the member state is responsible for it, and that the asylum seekers may be transferred. But this particular three principles have not really worked, and the criticism is coming from basically four areas: that the Dublin system doesn't work fairly, because like we saw in the beginning, there is overburdening of Spain and the frontier countries than the countries which are situated safely up in Europe. So it doesn't work fairly, it doesn't work very efficiently, because despite that, there is a huge confusion about how many applications are coming and how many applications are processed. There is all the time news about refugees being held up at detention centers, and that has become a huge human rights problem, right? So and then it jeopardizes refugees' rights, because about children and women, and it is a very unending debate right now. And the cost of Dublin regulation is pretty expensive. So then there has been an evaluation, and June 2015 they started to evaluate it, and then they started the implementation, how to evaluate how they have been implementing it, and the overall working of Dublin regulation. So what they've done now is that they're proposing a new regulation on asylum and migration management, and which is going to be based on the principle of solidarity and fair sharing of responsibility. So, what is happening now is that in 2016, and please come to the point here, is that the Commission has proposed to revise and replace the current asylum instruments to better manage migration flows, and that has been set out in the European Agenda for Migration. The European Parliament has, for the first time adopted this negotiation in November 2017, which includes a lot of things. But what I want to, really focus on is that they are working towards an allocation system, so that the frontier states' problems, or the burden of the frontier states, can be better managed. Okay. So if you look at closely what the new Pact on Migration says, it has already been adopted by the European Commission on the 23rd September 2020, which is very latest. And like I said, that the Pact recognizes that no member state should shoulder a disproportionate responsibility, and that all member states should contribute to solidarity on a constant basis. Now, the challenge is that whether this recognition will be translated into practice in the face of a divided Europe. Now, why do I say so? I say so because there are three key problems to this. And the three key problems are, okay, so this is about, I would rather skip this because there's little time, and I would come to this later, because this is about the new Pact on Migration. They want to be more fair, etc. It's more simplified. There's a wider scope for relocation. There can be, certain changes that can be made, and immediate protection can be granted. Things that were not existing in Dublin 2 and Dublin 3. Okay, so they are definitely going a step further, and all of that is there. But like I said, that there are three key problems that kind of the three key problems which will determine how successfully the new policy is going to be adopted and implemented, which is the first area is definitely post-pandemic status of Dublin, and post-pandemic status of what is happening to migrants. What is happening is that in March 2020, travel has been suspended. And then while the Dublin regulation continued to apply, most transfers between Dublin member states were suspended. June 2020, they began to be lifted. But again, right now, because of COVID, because there are repeated lockdowns, etc. So it's not really, not really much action is happening there. Okay. So member states have indicated that they plan on gradually organizing more Dublin transfers in weeks to come, but at the same time, the COVID pandemic, the problems are such that they have to give priority to public health and safety measures. Okay. The second problem area is definitely the countries Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Yeah,
Sorry,
and
just
yes,
we're
I'll
over time, so if you
I'll
could please.
wrap up in a minute. So, for example, the Hungarian government has been repeatedly refusing, to support a migration accord. They, in 2019, they refused to support the EU and Arab League migration accord. They have already come up with zero tolerance for migration. January 2021, last month, they say Hungary and Poland, they continue to oppose. So basically the thing is that where do you go? And then there's Brexit. And after Brexit, UK's immigration plan has also been rejected. So what I want to say is that the future is uncertain, and this is my last slide. In further, we have to see how this particular problem is managed, because this is directly related with how they are going to manage xenophobia, the rise of right-wing populism, Euroscepticism, and basically the entire future of European Union. Thank you so much for your patience.
All right, great. Thank you, Doctoral. Plenty of ideas there and issues to probe further, hopefully in the Q&A. So onwards now to our final speaker, Afzalur Rahman, who is a lecturer in the Department of International Relations at the University of Chittagong in Bangladesh, and who will round up the discussion that we've had today by providing an overview of the impact of COVID-19 on the Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh, which in one sense also is, I think it's always good to end on a future-looking note. So Afzalur, when you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Okay.
Go
So
ahead.
thank you so much, Honorable Chair, for giving me the floor. I think I'm audible and skin is visible to everyone. And I am also delighted to express my gratitude to the Nepal Institute for International Cooperations and Development for giving me these opportunities to share my findings about the impact of COVID-19 on the Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. So as I'm the last speaker, I'm going first to finish my presentations within the time limit that I have. So what I'm going to share with you is mainly try to understand the socio-economics and political dynamics of the COVID-19 on the refugee camp. As third of my previous speaker, excluding the previous two speakers, they focused on historical dynamics and the migration nexus, genders, and human rights perspectives of the Rohingya refugees. I'm not going to cover all those. After the outbreak of COVID-19, mainly I just try to cover these three fundamental objectives. First one is understanding the COVID-19 impact on the socio-political vulnerabilities to the Rohingya refugees, mainly to the women and children and also the men. And secondly, the types of conflict and triggers of impact on the Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. And finally, I just try to deconstruct the idea of repatriations. There was a repatriations memorandum of understanding was signed in 2017 by Bangladesh government and Myanmar. What about that repatriation process right now after the outbreak of the COVID-19? Moving forward, study areas is you see in Bangladesh, in the coastal areas, around 26 refugee camp in very overpopulated areas, including the two former registered camp. So these are the, overview of the camp areas. You see that I was visited during last year during the pandemic time. To understand the impact of the COVID-19. Mainly the methodology I followed in here, extensively the local newspaper, national and international newspaper after the outbreak of the COVID-19 in March June and May, and later I went there in November, as I am also very close to the Rohingya refugee camps right now. So I just try to deconstruct all those arguments. So I think everybody are well aware about the Rohingyas. So I don't need to define them again. So currently, around 0.8 million Rohingyas living in Bangladesh. Most of them came to Bangladesh in 2017, but before that, there was a small number of Rohingyas in Bangladesh before 2017. The number was 28,000 in two registered camp. So right now, 28 camp, including that previous 28 two registered camp. So this is the scenario of the Rakhine state and also the Bangladesh border. And so as all of you are well aware about that 135 ethnic group in Myanmar, and Rohingya is not in that list. And these are the pictures of how the Rohingyas are living in all over the world. Now moving back to my main discussions, the impact of COVID-19. Number one, I just try to say that because of the COVID-19, as government initially declared to shut down the, basic service and other necessary service, only government permitted the emergency service and humanitarian worker to access to the Rohingya camp. So that time, Rohingyas and their male and also the other group, they involved in drugs and other crime activities. So as there is a less vigilance and also surveillance from the law enforcement agencies, so they're easily targeted by some of them called the locally popular known what is dalal, and also the brokers. They're involved in this process, mainly carrying out the one of the mad drug that is called the Yava. In previous, it was carried out by the Bangladeshis, but because of the heavy measures and strict measures taken by the Bangladesh governments to the Bangladeshi citizen, right now that's diverted to the Rohingya refugees, as there is a kind of soft policy during the COVID-19 because of outbreak of the COVID-19 from the interactions with the Rohingyas. That's why only the emergency service opened that time. So this is the first one. And second one is government also kind of limit the access to the informations, mainly the mobile network and internet and other issues. And as because of there is a rumor and also misinformation in the Rohingya camp, and most of them are illiterate and they have less access to the information at that time about the issues like maintaining the hygienes and also frequently washing the hands and other stuffs. And they also denied access to the health service during that time. And this area is kind of remote areas. They have, all the facilities that demands by the COVID-19 patients are not available there. And third one is, even if some of the NGOs like UN High Commission for Refugees and other NGOs, they funded some hospital in there. When I was in there, I saw some hospital and patients. But right now, yesterday when I was talking with the humanitarian worker, they told that the hospital is right now, vacant, and who consider the symptom of the COVID-19, they do not go to the hospital, rather than they just kept in their home and just roaming around the camp areas. Okay. Now moving on to the third one is during that time, if you just notice the news of international newspapers like Guardians and also the BBC and Al Jazeera, then some of the Rohingyas that time tried to cross the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea, so that they got access to the land of Malaysia and also the Indonesia. So try to understand why people, amid the COVID-19 crisis, they try to migrate to the Malaysian and Thailand, as because they saw no hope in the camp area, and there is a lack of facilities right now in the camp areas, because they're right now in a 3 and 4 year living in the same place. And a lot of NGOs and international donor agency, they cut down their fund to the camp areas. So they're kind of living without hope. So that is the reason in the COVID-19 moment, there is a report of, around thousands of Rohingyas that died in the Bay of Bengal. So that's another impact of the direct impact of COVID-19. People just try to left the camp areas to the neighboring countries by crossing the sea in Malaysia and also Indonesia and other area that is called the Bengal boot crisis. So next one is, I say that in the meantime, this is a very irregular migrations from their own willingness. But there is another side of the story that brokers and traffickers ring, they're also involved in Cox's Bazar, mainly targeting the illiterate Rohingyas who have less knowledge about the geography, like the very perilous route of the Bay of Bengal. Maybe they thought most of the victim. I interviewed some of the victims in when I was conducted my thesis. They told that they don't know about the complexities and perilous route in Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea. Rather than they trust the dalal and the brokers. Okay. So, and very recently, I want to say that during the COVID-19, government reallocated some of the Rohingyas to the Bhasanchar, one of the island of Bay of Bengal. During that time, the Rohingyas who were deported from Malaysia, they later, what I said, they relocated in Bhasanchar as these areas kind of remote, and so that government can ensure the quarantine. So that was the argument of the government. But very recently, in last month and last 2 months, a set of Rohingyas also said, relocated to the Bhasanchar. So this is another impact by using the COVID-19 issues and other issues, government relocated some of them to the Bhasanchar. So now, this is the road, I think some of you are well aware about that, Bangladesh to, Thailand and crossing the Andaman and Malaysia and Indonesia. My key findings and the key points, number one, in the camp area, there is a testing facilities is very limited. Second one is government have no plan to vaccinate the Rohingya refugees, as Bangladesh have right now taken huge project of vaccinating all of their citizens, but Rohingyas is not there in their list. Second one is, and there is a kind of restrictions to their move, and the hospital also just shut down because of the fund crisis by the international donor. And third one is most important things is within a high gender-based violence during the COVID-19 pandemic, as because they are sitting in the camp areas, they have no other way, and they mainly targeted the very vulnerable group like women and also the children, and fundamentally I say the adolescent girls. Who have been there is a kind of report that adolescent girls also the victims of rape and gender-based violence in the camp areas. So, and there is a high rate of crimes among them, Rohingyas. Maybe most of them are involved in the carrying the drugs and also organized crime like gangs. They mainly target, mainly target the locals and also the host in exchange of the monies and other issues. Now, I say that significantly, most of them are targeted by the dalals, and most of them are Bangladeshis in origins. So because of the COVID-19, there is another issues. In last 1 year, there is no significant dialogue between Bangladesh government and Myanmar. But in last month, in this month, 1st February, there is dialogue between amongst the Bangladesh, Myanmar, and China, and there is a possibility of repatriation, but it's very slow. I think COVID-19 have also the impact on the repatriation process, and the very recent military coup in Myanmar also have been a kind of mixed reactions among the Rohingyas, and also what I said that Bangladesh is what will be the features of repatriations. Generally, if I sum up my whole space, I say that COVID-19 mainly having a huge psychological impact mainly to the women and children and also the adolescent girls. And there is a new types of crimes, like most of them are Rohingyas are involved in the Yaba trafficking, and also the human traffickers targeted them. And they're also mainly the girls also targeted by the illegal prostitute networks. And they're recruited by Bangladeshis in different entertainment industries and other. If I sum up my whole space, in my papers, I just try to understand the impact of the COVID-19, mainly considering the socio-political dynamics to the Rohingyas who are living in the refugee camps, 28 refugee camps in Bangladesh, And finally, I just try to say that there is a kind of protected repatriations process for the long-standing Rohingya issues between Bangladesh and Myanmar, and that added new dimension in recent military coup. So thank you so much for all of your patience hearing. I'm right now in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Afzalur. Again, very fascinating look at the Rohingya crisis, and it's great to hear of the insights that you've gained from doing some field work in the area as well. So we now have approximately 10 minutes left for a Q&A and for comments. So far we have one question that's come through for Ms. Kundu, but certainly for others, please don't be shy and please do feel free to put through your comments. We do have two kind of topics here under the overarching Rohingya crisis theme, one on the Rohingya crisis, but also the other one on migration in the EU as well. So please make sure that you take that into consideration. All right, so the first question to Ms. Kundu, how do you see the Indian response to the Rohingya crisis panning out in light of the coup d'etat in Myanmar? Do you think India will likely look at the crisis from a humanitarian and legal point of view in light of the concept of a principle of non-refoulement? As well as the Indian constitution. So what would be your thoughts? If you can please try and keep your responses succinct as well, that would be much appreciated. So Ms. Kundu, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah. To be very brief about this, when we have to talk about a conflict management, we can talk about it from various perspectives and from various dimensions. So one of the dimension is how you are handling the crisis at the situation, and the other dimension would be how you would like to prevent the future conflict that has the potential to escalate. So I think the method that government of India has adopted is a second one, and government of India has been trying to be, they are assisting Myanmar, the state of Myanmar, in managing the problem before the future escalation of the conflict happens in Rakhine state. So they have signed the MOU with the government of Myanmar. They are helping Rakhine state in the development process of Rakhine state. So they came up with a plan, and under that plan, government of India has been assisting Rakhine state's development activities. For example, the rehabilitation, resettlement, building of hospitals, building of schools, building of housing. So India and Japan, both the countries have been very responsive in this regard. As far as this constitution providing refugees the right to life, yes, that's very true. But I think we all know that what is the counter argument, and the counter argument is India has not signed the 1951 Refugee Convention. So that's a counter argument that we have. So as I said, each and every problem has various dimensions, and we have to look at the problem from all those dimensions rather than looking at the problem from a very broad perspective. So I think as researchers, that's our duty, that we need to look at the situation from various perspectives so that we remain neutral. Of course, the security concerns that New Delhi has expressed in the past, those concerns do have some ground. So I think India has been maintaining a balanced position by giving assistance to Rakhine state to ensure that development happens within the state and they can manage the problem at the home front and the problem does not escalate in future. But for that plan to take the implementation in a solid way, we need to wait. Any of those plans, when it comes to execution of those plans, it takes time. So we need to be patient with that. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Kundu. Would any of the other speakers like to weigh in, those who have spoken on the Rohingya crisis? Would any of you like to weigh in on the Indian response or any other national responses in light of the most recent coup d'etat in Myanmar? No?
Ma'am, if I could add a few points to that.
Sure. Go
Uh,
ahead.
I mean, I feel that the Indian response has been rather measured till now, and there's a time for it to actually evolve. As ma'am said, there's this question of escalation, but India is actually at the crossroads at the moment, in my opinion, where we need to make a we have to make a decision at some point, much though we are not signatories to the UN Convention on Refugees, neither in 1951 nor the 1967 protocol. If India sees itself as a responsible global power, at some point it will have to address this lacuna. I do believe that sincerely, because we've traditionally been open to hosting refugees, be it Tibetan refugees or even Tamil Sri Lankan refugees. So there is definitely a point that can be raised, say, suggesting that we need to have a more humanitarian approach towards the Rohingyas as well. Now, with the entire nexus with the China, Myanmar, and India nexus, there at the northeast, India's northeast, there are attempts to give a strategic angle to the conflict as well. So I think India is definitely buying time at the moment before it can really play out its cards.
Right. Thanks for that, Anuttama. Nancy or Afzalur, would you like to add to any of that?
Okay, though my paper didn't cover the Indian response and other regional power response, but from my perspectives, I say Bangladesh are very disappointed about all their friends, mainly the Indian response in this triggered as in a democratic country. And someone already expected the response that came from the China, because China is a big supporter of Myanmar regime over there. But India's silenced mainly surprised the Bangladesh response, as India is one of the biggest democratic country and also the inspirations for many developing countries too who are democratic. So I think there's a scope for supporting the Bangladesh in the process of the repatriations, as Bangladesh is a small country hosting millions, 1 million Rohingyas at least. I see it will create a regional kind of regional tension in future, because they are so illiterate, and I think the regional response would be welcome in future from the India and China. So they need more support, because they are the main player right now in Rakhine State. They're constructing the, deep support and other issues beyond considering all those geopolitical considerations. The repatriation is a must right now. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for that, Azalur. So with the remaining minutes, I wonder if there are any further questions from the audience.
Yes, I have some questions and also comments, if you permit me. Uh, for me, actually, I used to hear before about the Rohingya crisis, but I'm not so popular. I mean, I got in touch with this topic due to my master, due to a course on international politics on my master degree. Well, I have two questions actually, very short. Uh, First question is to Mrs. Nancy Puri, about you thought about exploring the human rights of Rohingyas. In this context, I just would like to hear your opinion. Do you think, is it possible to get uh, uh, to get the status of autonomous region, uh, this group of people, this ethnicity, even though in Myanmar is a dictatorship? And the second question is for Mr. Afzalur Rahman. He told about he pointed out about the rape crimes and about gangs are active, because I couldn't understand this point. Also, I would like to have an explanation if it's possible, and then I will pass to a comment for Dr. Swasti Rao. But first of all, if it's possible, I would like to get answers and your opinions.
Sure. So let's go to you first, Nancy. Do you have any quick responses to Constantin's question? Nancy Puri, are you still here with us? Otherwise, we might jump to you first, Afzalur, if you'd like to address Constantin's.
Okay, thank you so much, Constantine, for your for your wonderful questions. Mainly the gangs and rapes and other robbery issues are conducted with the Rohingya males at night. You know what? Rohingya camps are vigilance of the Bangladesh law enforcement agencies and military
Yeah.
are active in the daytime. At night, the whole area is mainly controlled by the Rohingyas. So it's quite tough for Bangladesh government to spend a huge amount of monies and other issues because their number is 1 million. Okay, I think it's beyond imaginations to maintain all those law enforcement agencies at night. Okay, the mainly the rapes and gangs and other issues happen in night, as during COVID-19 there is a possibility and fear among the law enforcement agencies of spreading the COVID and other issues. Okay, there is
Okay.
new things.
I understood. What kind of gangs are these of Burmese origin or other
Most of them are Rohingyas, okay, and government also
Rohingyas?
yes, government also
Okay.
detect them. Some of them also already, I mean, give, I mean, kind of capital punishments to some extent in the countering, like what I say that killing by using the law enforcement agency to some extent when they became very furious, the law enforcement
Okay.
agencies.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mrs. Pichamon, just a small comment, if you would like to, if you could give me permission, I'd like to just give a small comment to Dr. Swastirao. Really, I liked your presentation. I hopefully to get in touch personally on our common topic. You pointed out about border management policy. Actually, it was part of my experience and research. And you also point out about some operations of Frontex. Actually, there are more, and you know, all of them were dealing with actually the illegal migration. Those operations were like on Western Balkans, most of the all. I mean, at the border of let's say Western Balkan countries with the European Union, for example, Serbia and Hungary, or maybe Albania and Greece. Um, and as you know, as you pointed out also about Visegrad Group countries, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, Poland, and Hungary. Actually, these countries, of course, they are against EU policies somehow because they actually are very nationalist. I'm talking from my experience being a foreign student in Hungary. Really, I can face some related problems. Um, and not just me, but all of us. Actually, if in some Western countries the highly educated migrant could get a good job, in these countries without knowing language, is it impossible? I mean, in Hungary, it's totally uh, uh, impossible to get a good job. Uh, Actually, first of all, you need to know language. Otherwise, you need to go back after studies. Of course, they are very let's say right wing. Actually, I mean the governments are right wing, and of course, what I would like to say, all this double regulations and other features related to migration to European Union is based on risk analysis. The risk analysis is also gives opportunity to make this filter of selection of potential terrorists, and I mean to divide. I mean, who actually is the asylum seeker and who is a potential terrorist or a potential criminal to who wants to commit some crimes in Europe, because really we face very big problems actually, uh, and as I
Constantine,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
really sorry. It's just that we are over time. So
Sorry,
and I
sorry.
feel like
Thanks
that's
so much.
I feel like you're touching on some very big issues here, and issues that Dr. Swasti, I'll certainly encourage both of you to get in touch, perhaps after
Yeah,
this, so
yeah.
that you can discuss it further. And again, the same to the. Sorry.
That would be better. I Constantin and I can correspond later because anyway I think we're end of our session and I would looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I would appreciate.
Yes, no, and also thank you to all the presenters for trying to keep the time, for sharing with us all of your very fascinating work. I really look forward to seeing more from each of you in your respective topics. And I do hope that this panel will have given you an opportunity to get to know other people working in the same space, and I hope all of you stay in touch with one another one way or another. So on that note, thank you again to all presenters. Thank you to everyone who has joined us for this session, and also, of course, to the organizers of this conference. On that note, let's end here. And thanks again, everyone. And of course, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will propose the vote of thanks on behalf of NICE. Distinguished speakers and chairs, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the fifth session. It is my honor to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of NICE to all who have graced us with their presence and contributed their parts to make this event a resounding success. First of all, we would like to express a profuse gratitude and sincere thanks to our chair, Dr. Pichamon Yeophantong, for agreeing to the session today. Our sincere thanks also goes to our speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such a comprehensive and convincing presentation. We're really honored to have all speakers with us here today. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations as well. Finally, I mention our deep sense of appreciation for our audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live on our YouTube channel. Thank you for your valuable time and attention and for making this session productive with your questions as well. We're truly honored to have you all with us this evening and hope to stay connected with you in the future as well. It's really been a pleasure. Also to join us at our next session. Thank you so much, everyone.